Let's get to our next topic. I'm loving this because the headline in the papers, net zero risks crushing businesses. Who's saying that? Is it me? No, is it one of those climate deniers that we hear so much about? No, it's the Secretary of State for Energy Security and Net Zero, Claire Coutinho. As I've pointed out to many of these people holding this title, it's either energy security or net zero. It can't be both. But is this a sign that, well, sanity is returning to government when it comes to climate change policies? Well, let's hope so. Let's talk to Rupert Darwall about this. He's author of Green Tyranny. Good morning to you, Rupert.
Good morning, Julia.
Thanks for joining us. I mean, this is very encouraging, isn't it? This is a speech that Claire Coutinho is making, and where she's basically saying net zero policies will risk crushing British businesses if imposed in the wrong way, sort of top down, rather than, she says, we're at a fork in the road, rather than sort of more and more targets and narrow targets. She's saying we should have basically, you know, space to tackle things. We should have competition. I mean, finally, someone talking sense in that job.
Well...
Oh, you're not that hopeful.
Look, the headline's great, isn't it? Because that's the truth. Of course, net zero is going to crush British business. That's why the government is putting in carbon tariffs to protect what remains of British manufacturing. The steel industry is on its back because of very high prices of carbon credits and so forth. So that bit's absolutely right, and it's good to hear it, and we should welcome it. But really, Julia, it is delusional to say there's a different way of doing it and it's not having targets. And she talks about the fork in the road, you know, and the fork, so there's a choice. Well, the fork in the road, Julia, was taken when Parliament passed the Climate Change Act in 2008. When you set a greenhouse gas reduction target with 80% originally, now net zero thanks to Theresa May, it requires, to meet that target, requires lots of having lots of other targets.
Yeah.
You can't escape that. That's just the reality.
And the thing is, of course, and it's not just, whether we're going to have to buy an electric car, whether it's 2030 or 2035 or whatever it is. It's not just that. We are talking about the government's own documents, the Climate Change Committee's own documents make it really clear. It's going to require the most extraordinary changes to our life, our ability to fly away on holiday, to own a car at all, let alone an EV, what we're allowed to eat, what we're allowed to buy. The restrictions are huge. I mean, and that's the thing, most people just haven't got to grips with it. I've always said, though, none of this stuff survives an election when people actually know about it. I'd love a referendum on this because, I mean, we'd win by 80% once people actually realise. Because, I'm worried about climate change. How worried are you about it when it comes to impacting on your and your family's daily life and our economy? Because the reality is it's not crushing business. It has already been. There's a reason why we shift all our manufacturing to China and elsewhere. It's because we can't afford the energy in this country. Why? Because of net zero policies.
Yeah, that is absolutely correct. And it's worth saying that since 2008 and passage of the Climate Change Act, Britain has had its worst, the economy has performed worse in terms of growth and productivity since 1780.
Not a coincidence.
It's really been terrible, really terrible.
I mean, that's the thing. Look, the whole of Europe's been doing this. Now, America talks a game on a lot of this stuff, but actually they've basically, they massively increased their fossil fuel output, and they're basically supplying us with the oil and the gas that Europe was getting from Russia previously before the Ukraine invasion. They're doing very well out of this. But we're not. Do we need to just sort of, I would rather we just stopped even talking about this nonsense and just dropped it completely. But do we just need some quiet sanity going on behind the scenes in government?
Well... When you talk about government, I think the reality is with the Climate Change Act, the real government of this country is the Climate Change Committee. That's the most powerful body in the country. And until that is changed, which means Parliament getting control, taking control back from
an accountable, democratically elected body, as opposed to... But also, crucially, the courts. I mean, we've already seen, numerous projects being tackled in the courts, whether it's the European Court, with what happened with Switzerland on their climate change policies, but we're seeing it, all these legal challenges, Chris Packham and et al., trying legal challenges under the legal requirement of the climate targets. Basically, you can't build anything anymore.
Yeah, the Climate Change Act imposes a legal duty on the government to pursue this target. And so it's an invitation to Greenpeace, Chris Packham, whatever, to take the government to court, and the courts then to make policy and impose policy on the democratically elected government.
I'm going to take a scintilla of hope from this. Claire Coutinho seems to be on sane ground here. on the way. We're at the foothills of the Himalaya of this battle, but it's worth being a little bit hopeful. Rupert Darwall, always so good to talk to you, author of Green Tyranny. Thank you. Very brief word from Tom Slater, still with us in the studio.
Well, I think the penny's finally starting to drop. I just wish it happened a lot earlier than now. So much damage has been done, and also we need more than just what Rishi Sunak has been offering. Oh, let's push back some of the interim targets. Let's keep the main one. I think there would be a lot of political capital, a lot of votes in just saying we've gone wrong on this and we should put your living standards first. Why more politicians don't think to do
hey, what
that,
about the children? What about your grandchildren? Don't you care about the planet, Tom, is the cry. It's like, I mean, because they're not going to die. No, none of the reports are predicting that. This is the thing. Everyone's going to have to stand up on this. I thought Rishi Sunak, who can crunch numbers, would know that, and I think he probably does.